Thank you. In the 25th anniversary of Landcare, which is this year, I'm pleased to be talking about Landcare for the next 25 years. But I think as we look forward, it's important for those of us who've been around a while and for those who haven't been around a while to place Landcare in the context of its history, the problems it's trying to solve and where it's come from, because I think that holds some lessons for the future. We're talking about 25 years of Landcare, but I spent Christmas reading another book. Australia is a very ancient land and it's populated by ancient people, and we acknowledge the Indigenous people at this conference. But I had to read Bill Gamage's book, The Greatest Estate on Earth, and in reading that, it just appeared to me that perhaps we're looking at 50,000 years of Landcare. As we've heard, Landcare started with groups of farmers in Victoria who wanted to do something about the land degradation that was visibly affecting their farms. European settlement, the introduction of new farming systems to old and fragile soils, and our variable climate also brought with it land degradations. Few good seasons encouraged intensification. Myths such as the rain follows the plough abounded, and we have images like that, stone cottages in the Flinders Ranges, stark reminders that we were farming on the margins of the good earth. In the droughts in the mid-20th century and just following rabbit plagues, farming must have looked anything but sustainable. But farmers are a very resilient lot, and despite all the signals that they could probably see that things were difficult and they needed to change some practices, getting big change in agricultural systems often takes dramatic events to create that momentum for societal change. Many farmers knew they had problems, and the big events did happen. Australia's not alone in this respect, though. In the 1930s in the United States, the Great Depression and years of drought plunged that country into drought, dust storms, sandstorms. In 1935, a mountain of dust went right across the US and got to Washington. The response? In 1937, President Roosevelt made a call to action to all the states that the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. The result was the first soil conservation program in the United States, right across the nation. Now, Australia's an innovator, but we're usually not the first adopter, we come second. Drawing on the US experience, the New South Wales Soil Conservation Act was in force 12 months later, and the first conservation service established. In 1946, all state governments and the Commonwealth and CSIRO had a standing committee on soil conservation. I'm touching on dust a bit because it's such a dramatic and visible example of soil loss. With the dust goes nutrients. With the dust goes soil structure, organic matter. If the dust's blowing, the soil's gone, so is its productive capacity, and in a general sense, no soil, no food. Most of us will remember the September 2009 recent dust in the middle of the millennium drought, when we had a red dawn across most of eastern Australia. 840,000 square kilometres covered by dust, and 12 to 20 million or 17.5 million tonnes of dust deposited. Real costs. The cost of the New South Wales economy estimated at $299 million from off-site effects alone. Loss of topsoil, erosion, nutrient loss, infrastructure, health effects and business damages. You might ask, how does this relate to Landcare? Well, a need to address soil erosion and the public impact of a dust are behind community and government action on Landcare. Many people would say the dust storm of 1983 was a catalyst for Landcare. In the 1980s, land degradation was very visible across Australia. It was becoming critical. Everyone had their story. Dry land or irrigation-induced salinity. Pasture degradation in the Western Division of New South Wales and Queensland. Soil loss on the Darling Downs. Right from 1945, Landcare, the practices have been in place and started for some time. Paddock-scale operation across most states, soil conservation occurring. In the 1960s, basin-wide activities. We've had CMAs, in a sense, and planning at that level before. But then the move to a Landcare movement. Groups of farmers trying to solve their own problems. In the mid-1980s, the term Landcare began to emerge. And as we've heard, in 1986, the Victorian government and farmers got together with a multidisciplinary, community-based, highly autonomous, Victorian-wide Landcare program. Not wanting to miss out on a good thing, by 1989, the then Prime Minister, Bob Hawke, launched a decade of Landcare as part of a statement of environment, and Landcare was a national program and a national initiative. That statement's worth reflecting on. It recognised that soil degradation across Australia's arable land was the country's most serious environmental problem. Another call to action. We've taken too much from the earth and given back too little. Enough is enough. And as we've heard, an unlikely alliance between the NFF, Philip Toyne, and the late Rick Farley, the NFF of the late Rick Farley and Philip Toyne of the ACF drove a plan called the Decade of Landcare Plan. It was supported with government money, Commonwealth and state. And reflecting on what it is, do we need to look back at the origins of Landcare to think where it goes in the future? The aim of that plan was all land managers being able to make well-informed decisions on the basis of economic, ecological and the social costs and the benefits of their practices. Institutional arrangements which put the responsibility for addressing land degradation with those who cause it. A research and development effort that promoted sustainability internationally and internationally competitive agriculture and efficient rural industries. All levels of government, the community and individuals understanding the nature and value of our land resources and working in partnership, reconciling economic, social and ecological concerns for the benefit of all Australians. The plan recognised that the goals would require cooperative action by land users and the wider community. At the very heart of Landcare and what makes it work, what makes it still work, is local action. Landcare was and is about well-informed, well-planned community action that adds together to address national problems. It continues to be a program about doing, about communities working together to get things done. It's about community groups and networks working with government, corporate support to conceive their visions and set goals for local and community action. Working from the ground up, these goals create a freedom and flexibility that give communities a sense of purpose and achievement, and that infectious nature of Landcare has been a key to success, building that enthusiasm at the local level, the national level and international. It's a messy structure. It's not controlled, but it works. Its organic nature is its strength and what gives it its capacity to adapt. The core of the program was about farmers restoring landscapes, but it's grown to much more. We've got friends of everything: river care, sea care, bush care, coast care, dune care. 6,000 groups, 100,000 land carers, they come and go in size. And the Australian government and state governments have invested in those programs over many years. But it gets money from other sources. It's estimated that for every dollar the government puts in, there's up to $6 put in by other sources or by in-kind effort from landowners. People often ask me, since I've been around a while, has Landcare made a difference? Well, I think the answer is yes. The Decade Plan set out to raise awareness, improve understanding of resource management and build capacity. I think it's pretty clear this was achieved. I recently took a trip, just go north of Canberra, and you can see some of the changes. 30 years ago, there was grassland and isolated trees, the odd shelter belt. Now we have healthier belts of woodland, stream banks, stabilised hill slopes and connected corridors. In the Millennium Drought, there was only one big dust storm. Ground cover seems to be being managed. Now, I know Landcare can't claim all the credit, but it certainly has had an influence and provided the drive for improvement and the glue for many partnerships. And there are on-ground outcomes and real benefits to farmers too. The Wodialloc Group in Victoria spent a bit of time looking at an audit of their 10 years, and they estimated they improved gross farmer income from $275 per hectare to $335 per hectare due to productivity improvements related to land care activities with soil and pasture. And there were off-site effects as well and public benefits from better native pastures, less rabbits, less erosion. The Bureau of Statistics does a survey of farmer practices across the country. 70% of cropping land is now minimally cultivated. That's a big change from 30 years ago. 65% of agricultural businesses report they manage land on vegetation on their land, and 55% of those estimate they manage 30 million hectares of conservation land. That's a big benefit to the public. The sophistication of groups has improved with a new focus on agricultural research that is relevant. We've heard about birch cropping, pursuing productivity research with their own staff and consultants. Other groups in Western Australia, such as Minganuurra, now deliver 70 trials a year and get to 95% of the farming community. Those groups had their origins, as we've heard, in Landcare groups. The brand's well recognised. 93% of farmers undertake Landcare activities on their farm, and 73% of farmers say they're part of the movement. The corporate sector chips in as well. Landcare Australia gets around 70 million of media coverage, and the Caring Hands ads are seen by everybody. Good recognition. The power, I think, of Landcare is that ground-up approach to natural resource management. It doesn't just work here, it works internationally. Landcare is an asset we can share. It can build bridges into other countries where relations are otherwise difficult. It can help those communities with their land degradation problems and empower them to address their own food security issues. The most enduring element of Landcare is its ability to learn and evolve. It's not the same as it was. Small community groups to sophisticated farming groups. From farmers relying on government research and extension to farmers taking control of their own research and information provision. While we've seen significant improvements in how farmers manage their land, innovation and change in agriculture will and must continue if we're to meet the growing demand for food in the future. And the challenges facing agriculture still continue. Farmers will be required to do more with less, better use of their land, more competition for water, using less expensive inputs. Changing consumer preferences and community expectations might require more of farmers to demonstrate their stewardship of land and water resources. Farmers recognise that long-term profitability is essentially the same as sustainability. From a physical resource management perspective, challenges remain. Improving soil management, addressing problems of acidification, soil salinity, nutrient management, soil erosion, weed and pest problems, vegetation loss. They're all still there, all have to be addressed, all have to be fitted into new farming systems. They're complex problems. They're interrelated physical, economic and social dimensions. Their resolution's going to require work across sectors, work across disciplines and partnerships between industries, farmers, governments, researchers and the community. No one's going to solve them alone, and they may require planning at scales bigger than local ones. The Australian Government is presently developing a white paper on Australia's agricultural competitiveness so that a strategic approach to promoting more investment and jobs growth and improving profitability in the ag sector can be developed. And as we move forward, I believe Landcare can play a role in addressing issues such as drought preparedness, market access for markets that care about where their food comes from, improving productivity, sustainable agriculture in Northern Australia, learning from the past, building resilient regional communities and building skills, capacity and capability. The agenda that comes out of the white paper will set the Australian Government's approach to agriculture for some time. It's an opportunity that shouldn't be missed. The Government has also announced a commitment to a continuing national Landcare program that is simple, local and long-term and involves the Landcare community in important decision-making around priorities and investments. Landcare's strengths in raising awareness, spreading information, galvanising local action for sustainable resource use and management and environmental improvement could and should be an important part of this agenda. There's never enough funding to do everything. Everything we want to do to protect the environment and the natural resource base would cost more than we ever will have. The most effective way to achieve things is making sure the money we have now is applied to the right issues and delivered in the most cost-effective way. And also looking at alternative solutions. Enduring solutions are most likely to be found in changing existing investment, building new markets or doing things in ways that bring in other players. I'm encouraged by alternative markets in rural land for wind, cleaner water, carbon, biodiversity plantings, vegetation offsets and just amenity value, and farmers are being remunerated for the ecosystem services they're managing. It's an exciting opportunity. Landcare itself has shown it's capable of change and adapting, and I can recall groups being worried about group decline. We now accept that groups come and go. Landcare's adapted with virtual groups and webinars. Ageing populations have seen innovations such as green nomads and Landcare for singles. Groups have moved from single-issue groups to multiple-issue groups. As new information emerges, new problems are addressed. Some groups focus on biodiversity, others on agriculture. Landcare's taken to the sea with Ocean Watch. A few people have spoken about the National Landcare Facilitated Surveys of Landcare. In 2012, one of the things that came out of that was that 1,000 farmers said 76% of them believed that the movement needed to evolve in new ways. They saw opportunities in innovation, in playing a role in social capacity, responding to the challenge of food security and resilience and the stronger links between the city and the bush. There's people out there saying, yes, Landcare can change and we'd like it to. Innovation will be part of that, and there are exciting opportunities in how farmers manage their land and the way things can go forward. Unmanned vehicles might be a way of controlling weeds and pests in a much more cheaper way. To address all of these things, it will require partnerships between regions and industries, groups, individuals, and using those new technologies. As others have said, looking over the fence is one of the biggest drivers of change. We learn from innovative farmers and successful farmers. Take what they're doing, test it, verify it, and then communicate it more broadly. Innovation at the community level, sharing information, working in partnership, this all sounds like Landcare. It's Landcare's core business and has been for 25 years. Landcare's come a long way in 25 years and has evolved and grown, and it's been copied overseas. Does it need to evolve and grow further in Australia? Well, it's a lot bigger than we think. We see the part that we're familiar with. Many people see it as about growing trees. Well, it does go beyond that. It's really about connections, the partnerships, and providing for the future. As the government develops the new National Landcare program over the coming months, we've committed to working with the community to keep approaches to natural resources management simple, local, and I hope practical for a healthy environment and sustainable landscapes. But the Australian Government can only play a role in natural resource management, providing national leadership or research, looking out for the public good, coordinating our information, looking at our international obligations. It can work with natural resource management regional bodies to deliver the program right across the landscape. It can help improve capacity. It can help and maintain the resources. It can help. It can't do it all by itself. But we're not about to tell the Landcare community what it needs to do. We can identify the national challenges. The community will identify local ones. We can work with R&D and extend national and strategic level information, but communities, individuals and industries will continue to take that research and apply it locally. Sustainability might really mean innovation and the capacity to continually improve and change. And it's a somewhat chaotic, organic, creative network of people learning, planning, trialling and sharing provides a good foundation for generating that energy and ideas to meet future challenges. In conclusion, I'd just like to return to what makes Landcare really work, and it's worth reflecting on the key principles that have made Landcare so successful. And I believe it's about local action, it's the ground up or bottom up movement, it's about communities coming together to get things done that they want done, it's about communities working together to conceive their own visions and set goals for the local and regional community, it's about using best available information, it's about people learning from each other. These principles have a universal application in rural Australia, and the caring hands provide a focus for that action. Returning to my bit about history, we had a decade of Landcare from 1990 to 2000, and in 2001 there was a first international Landcare conference. And one speaker, Jules Pretty, who was a specialist in sustainable agriculture from the UK, made a very influential observation at that first international conference. He observed that an effective and evolving community movement like Landcare would move from being dependent to independent and finally to interdependent. And what he meant was, in essence, a movement goes from being one that's dependent on a patron to one that has its own means of support, and then finally one that is built on many supports and builds upon those linkages and those resources and those connections to sustain itself. If Landcare can move to a future like that, I think it should and can have a real future in sustainable food production, addressing challenges such as drought and protecting the environment. As the movement becomes interdependent, Landcare will choose its own destiny, so in some shape or form, I think Landcare and that ethos will still be around in 2039.